Give it a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tiernan Brown, and I'm here with Graeme Massey from JacobsMassey AV.
Hello. Nice to meet you,
Great.
Tim.
You too. So, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely fine. I was just saying, actually, a little bit chilly here, but
Yeah.
apart from that, we're all good. Yeah. How are you, Tanner? You all right? You recovered from Event Tech Live, I take it?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, it's been a lot, been a lot going on.
Yeah.
Having to do this podcast and then organize dates and then find sort of people who are willing
Yep.
to talk to me. But you've been gracious enough to come on, so thank you very much for that.
No, no, you're very welcome. Sincerely welcome. I think it's a great initiative what you're doing. Definitely.
Perfect. So,
Yep.
to start off, how would you define the audiovisual industry for a young person looking for their first job?
Oh, how would I define the AV industry? That's quite a tricky question.
Yeah.
How would I do it? I think I would advise anybody looking at AV as a career. It arguably falls into I would say three sectors. Let's put it like that. And in no particular order. The first being the whole area of design, system design. Sorry, that is AV system design, integration, commissioning, and support. That would be one area, and obviously that touches on many sectors, be that retail, banking, finance, legal, etc., etc. But systems integration, I would define as being one clear area of AV engineering as well as support. Um, I think you could certainly put another category in as that of live events. So obviously that whole world of whether that's an in-person um, hybrid or a virtual event, but essentially a live event of some configuration. And that would be certainly driven by either AV production companies um, or the whole area of sort of on-site live event production support. Um, and then a third area, this is obviously really broad brush stuff. I would say it's that whole world of what we class as that end user um, sector, and actually thinking about it, the end user organisations, those institutions, those conference centres, any higher education facilities, any area, if you like, where there is some form of AV infrastructure, typically combines the use of systems integration with live events uh, and and is utilizing both areas, if you like. So if I had to draw a diagram to describe the AV industry, I would say it's one of three areas: systems integration, live events, and then the end user experience, whether that's within a framework of a building, a conference center, so to speak, or even a festival, an event. But I suppose the overarching point to make here is that the AV industry, is clearly continuously evolving and developing, and it's. I mean, since we started in the audiovisual industry, so much has changed,
Mm.
um, and obviously with the onset of virtual virtual reality, augmented reality, AI, we could go on and on and on basically, but essentially I would put it firmly in the category of a technology driven sector that is growing, will continue to grow. And obviously, I would highly recommend it as a career.
Agreed. I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head. I can't think of many other areas we cover.
Yeah, yeah,
It's bad, honestly, considering how
yeah.
impossible it is usually to explain this industry to people. That is about as succinct as it'll get.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, we all still get the question, don't we, from time to, well, we certainly do, is, you describe to somebody, you know, what you do for a living. And you still inevitably get a little bit of pushback where they go, AV, what does that mean? But I think that is changing. I think people are certainly starting to view it, and I know we talked a lot about this at Event Tech Live when we met some fantastic apprentices. I have to say they were absolute stars on so many levels.
Mm.
That it is fast becoming a career of choice, and I know that that's something that by your very own efforts, Tin, and with this podcast that you've started, which, by the way, once again, I think is a very, very clever and a great initiative to inform and educate, anybody that's looking to come into the industry. That, yeah, it's becoming, it's more visible. I think a lot of people would hopefully agree with me when I say that actually the impact of the pandemic, not to dwell too much on the past, obviously was huge on many industries, and obviously particularly in the area of AV with largely live events. And but the thing about the use of AV technology during and beyond that point, up to date where we are now, actually made AV teams become suddenly more visible within organizations. And I actually think that led, well, I don't think I know, it led to salaries finally being, awarded arguably at levels to perhaps where they should have been before that period. We saw a sort of 35 to 40% exponential growth in salaries in that first year, a few years ago. And that's largely because people, suddenly realized, hold on a minute, this team over here that's been quietly supporting our business critical communications needs, whether that's a simple VC call or whether that's a very complex global town hall event, we couldn't do it without those people. And I think, that is certainly a trend which I think is going to continue. And then I think layered on top of that, obviously, I do want to mention them on this podcast, the freelance community, who were hugely hit during that time, and I know that particularly this year, it's always a tricky thing to balance, projects and being busy looking for additional work.
Yeah.
And you have these sort of pockets, where spikes of activity that are super busy. But the bottom line still is that, I think the acknowledgement of what freelancers provide as a potential career within the AV industry for those that once they get a little bit of experience, perhaps that's a route they would also take, is actually becoming more recognised as well. So yeah, sort of long answer to your question there, but hopefully it answers.
Good answer though. Well, doesn't mean bad in that case.
Yeah.
Suppose you've pretty much covered all of it.
I mean, I think in terms of yeah, I know you mentioned this point about people falling into the AV industry. What does that mean? And and I think historically, well, put simply, most people well, that I know of, certainly, didn't choose, and myself included, didn't choose to carve out a career in the AV industry. It was normally as a result of somebody who had an interest in either music or technology, or that could be derived from even being at school in the theatre, which is actually where my interest came when I was behind the scenes rather than in front of the camera. I'd rather be behind it, and that interest sort of led to my interest in AV. But I think what we're seeing now with some really really great initiatives, by obviously by Avixa with their whole CTSI and CTS and CTSD program, and then obviously this whole area of apprenticeships, which we've been firmly behind promoting in partnership with Middlesbrough College. Again, big shout out to Kelly Winspear, who hopefully, if she's watching, if you are interested in an AV apprenticeship, please get in touch with Kelly at Middlesbrough College. Just jump onto their website. But there are also clearly, some great initiatives. I know you met up with Denise Hughes from Woot Jobs, who I know has written this brilliant book. And I saw her last week myself at Event Tech Live, and that's, fantastic, great. What a thing to actually be able to, firstly, create, but also, it's a fantastic read for anybody that's looking at AV as a career. And then also to mention, just only today, I do want to shout out Brian Raven, who was former managing director at White Knight. And he is, watch his space, I'm sure you'll see him on LinkedIn. He is doing some amazing work, really amazing work. And we're involved in his project as well, where it's actual outreach work to schools. And watch this space. I say you'll see a lot more on that. There are opportunities to become like an ambassador. So if you're in the AV industry and you're watching this and you're keen to get involved, just get in touch with Brian. But he is actually alongside a business partner. They're actually developing that program. They piloted it last year, and I believe that is gathering some real serious momentum.
Fantastic.
So yeah,
stuff. Thank you for telling me all about White Knight. It's fantastic initiative. Yeah. I've just found out about. I'm going to research it further after this.
Absolutely. It's Brian Raven. And you can, if you just quite simply, anybody watching this, if you just search for Brian on LinkedIn, you'll find where he's at. But it's exciting stuff, and I think he's got a lot of connections, obviously, throughout the AV industry. But the schools outreach program that he and co have developed, I think that's going to be really quite something. So if you want to take part, please get in touch.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I've already introduced you as a part of JacobsMassey, but could you tell me what JacobsMassey is? What kind of company is it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So we are first and foremost an AV specialist service company. So there's three elements to JacobsMassey. So we provide permanent audio visual recruitment services to companies. So that can be any type of company. Here we go. Hold on a second. Lights. Bear with me a second.
This is what podcasts are for, eh? Is that clap on, clap off light?
It's a clap on, clap off light. Yeah.
There it is.
There you go.
Hey.
Yeah, so it's permanent audiovisual recruitment to any company, whether that's, so it's not just AV companies. We wherever there is a requirement for an audiovisual person, we're able to provide those services right across the UK. We also recruit in Europe as well. And then we have freelance, audiovisual freelance division that looks after the deployment of freelancers, again, right across the UK and occasionally into Europe. And then we have a third element to the company, which is essentially a full production division service. So where, let's say, a client is looking beyond staffing or beyond freelance support, they're actually looking for their event to be produced, if you like. We provide a full service, so we'll design and technically execute live events, either in a hybrid, in-person or virtual event form. And then certainly lastly, but not least, we do provide access to AV training. We have a number of training courses ourselves that we offer, but also we proactively, as you well know, promote, apprenticeships and online learning, and also access via manufacturers to those either looking to improve their skill set, but also those looking at the industry as a potential career. So that's JacobsMassey.
It's a fantastic company, I can say personally.
Thank you.
You guys run a tight ship.
Yeah.
So you've already kind of answered it anyways, but
All right.
it said that people fall into the AV industry. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think historically, in certain respects, that could be deemed to be a positive because people didn't know quite so much about it. They were inquisitive. They thought, haven't quite heard about this, but this sounds quite interesting. And in lots of ways, over the years, that's actually proved to be very successful because it's attracted people that have a genuine passion, interest, and they developed it by not so much by any formal training per se, but they developed it by sort of work experience on the job, so to speak. And obviously, as manufacturers and AV technology has developed, so have they too. However, here's the significant point I want to make. The issue is that as our industry has grown, as amazing and great as that is, what it's meant is that there has become a little bit of a sort of vacuum, if you like. And what I'm referring to is those people that fell into it have developed, have grown, but have we as an industry managed to secure people totally unknown to this sector as a career of choice? And the answer is no, we haven't. And what that has meant is that there is a slight depreciating pool, if you like, of experienced professionals, and therefore, that does restrict growth in any market economy. So what you need constantly in any sector is obviously those that are experienced to enable those that have no knowledge, no know-how to come in, develop, and kickstart their career. And the point I'm really making is that there hasn't really been a formal gateway access point per se, other than industry known courses. And that's why the outreach work to schools and universities and, the apprenticeship route in conjunction with all the other, courses out there, it aligns itself to one single point, which ideally what we're trying to want to get across here is that, we're very good at talking about the AV industry. If you're in the AV industry, But if you're not in the AV industry, arguably we're not quite so good at that. But we are getting better at it. And I do firmly believe that I think with those initiatives that I've described, whether that's, outreach work, schools, universities, apprenticeships, the point is that the word is starting to get out there. And I think the point to make is that finally, I do think we are, well, proof was last week when we were at Event Tech Live. There's the real deal. You're sitting there next to 3, 4, 5 different apprentices, all of whom hadn't really known each other prior to starting the course. And I know that Zachary was the first to graduate last week as well. So that's just the tip of where we are actually going, so to speak, of what I'm sure will be a significant influx of new people into the industry over the coming years, and that benefits everybody. That's why we've always been so passionate, and I don't mind saying it's no great secret. I got to know Jack Laidlaw at Middlesbrough very, very early on, but we've always been very, very keen and supportive of any initiatives to attract new people, because without new people, eventually, you start to have problems. Yeah,
100%. It's the way to go. I mean,
yeah,
it always goes on about, what are they called? Let's think. Was it? No, it's not Polaroid. What is the? I forget. There's a company that was around in the 60s. Then they were actually massive. I think it was a camera company of some kind, I believe.
Yeah, it was Kodak.
Kodak, that's the one.
Right.
She used to always go on about Kodak.
I'm actually showing my age there, but I know the answer to that question. Yeah, I mean, you're quite right. It's a good analogy, isn't it? They kind of failed to adapt, didn't they?
Not changing the times.
Yeah, and I think that's what's. I mean, look, to be fair to many people, in fact, every person I've ever known that there are some very, very creative, talented people in the AV industry. I mean, that's what's great about it, and they do adapt and they do innovate and they do, care about the industry and so it's more about how you enhance, if you like, that interest, and then how you get the message out. But as I say, I think we really are making some ground on that now, which is great.
Yeah, man. I think out of all the media industries I'm aware of and that I've sort of treaded in, maybe dipped a toe in, this is probably the fastest moving one I've ever known of, because media's been around since forever, right? So it's set in its ways, it stays roughly the same. If you're going into news, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get broadcaster roles, you're going to get camera roles, you're going to get some AV roles, for example. You're going to get the set like 5, 6 people in the OB and then the studio roles back at home.
Yeah.
But AV is like anything. You can
that's
do anything, actually. As long as it's one of the 4 things that you mentioned, the system integration, some kind of event, etc., you could do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what makes it so exciting. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, honestly, when AV was very much the sort of poor relation to broadcast. You mentioned broadcast there, and it certainly was nowhere near as recognized as obviously the IT industry with things like the CCNA qualifications. And I still think we've got a little bit of a way to go in terms of the IT industry, but we're very much on a par with broadcast now, because I know that there's a lot of talk. I know a lot of people perhaps that maybe or may view this content afterwards would strongly argue that actually, you look at AV and IT convergence, which I know there's been a lot spoken about that. But also there's a very strong argument that sorry, that's my phone going. Apologies.
I was wondering if it was mine.
Sorry, don't worry. Is that there's parity now. I would say there's parity between the AV industry and broadcast. because we've seen it certainly on the recruitment side of what we do, that there are actually some engineers crossing over from broadcast now into the AV industry, which was unheard of. You just wouldn't get that. And I think that's because largely down to technology, but also visibility, that we've become a little bit more considered as a career option. So I think we've seen people come from the IT industry. We see people coming in from the broadcast industry. And as I say, hopefully we'll start to see an increase in people that, have never considered it as a career. I mean, I just want to use one quick example, actually, because it sort of stunned me, actually. I was chatting to one of the apprentices and I said, "Oh, what was your background?" And he said, "Well, I used to be a chef." And I was thinking, "A chef?" I was thinking, right, okay.
Yeah.
And I said to him, "Oh, how did you hear of the industry?" And he said, "Well, to be honest, I was getting a little bit, I wasn't sure that, that chefing was going to be for me long term. And I saw the apprenticeship online. And then as I got talking to him, I thought, well, actually, hold on a minute here. If you think about it, there he is. He's very familiar in working in a pressurized situation. He's creative, admittedly he did have an interest in music as well, so there is some correlation. But it suddenly dawned on me. I thought, yeah, isn't it interesting? Had that not have existed, that apprenticeship online, there is somebody who now I've no doubt he'll go on to be very, very successful, but he wouldn't have considered it had it not have been visible. So I just thought that little anecdote there in a way, but it just shows that we shouldn't always assume that people that are interested in the AV industry are super technically minded people, because they're not always necessarily that.
I mean, I'm not. I came from a laborer's background, just picking things up and moving them, big brick, put it on my head, go.
Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with the little fidgety stuff, but I ended up, being pretty all right, and I love it.
And here you are now. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's opened, all of our eyes, actually. What am I saying? Not just mine, but all of our eyes, that, by making it visible, then you really are opening it up, because you're not just channeling, let's say, marketing campaigns or recruitment campaigns or that are specific to one technical area. You're basically saying, here's our industry. If you're interested, come and take a look. And that's a completely different strategy, which I think is more beneficial.
Much more beneficial, I think. It's also more, what's the word? Efficient, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, look, one thing I just want to stress here, and hopefully I speak to everybody that's been involved in trying to promote the industry. We can't do this alone. It's no one company can say, I'm going to come along and fix the issue of attracting people to the AV industry. You've got to really utilize people's interest and strengths. Now, those strengths may lie specifically technically delivering, talks on, it could be AI, it could be audio, it could be lighting design, but it could also be people that have worked in the industry. I mean, one of the biggest areas, which I was on a VIX event, attending an event, and one area that often gets overlooked are marketeers, because marketeers are the very people that, obviously are involved in promoting products and, selling products and services, etc. But actually, if you think about it, are those marketeers necessarily technically minded? No, not always. Some are, but not everyone. And so I think we shouldn't be blinkered in our view when we're looking at areas where people may be working at the moment, who may consider a career in AV. We need to remove that. We need to be completely, open-minded and welcome anybody that's interested in it in AV as a career.
So in that way, we won't lose anyone.
Exactly.
Family.
I mean, I would say in terms of kind of tips, if you like, if there are any tips in terms of coming or getting into the industry, I would say, do your research. It's pretty much known fact that anybody that shows interest, I mean, genuine interest, and has some know-how about a company that you're approaching, because let's face it, the AV industry, if you think about it, is about, it's creative technology, isn't it? It's problem solving. It's about being inquisitive and, thinking about how we can, provide, a good experience, whether that's an event, whether that's a system design or whatever. But, I would say to people, if you are interested, go and research those companies that, if you know of any manufacturers or whatever, but don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to make yourself visible, contact them, call them, and then I think also to actually, in terms of I mean, not to get too caught up in the minutiae of a CV, but certainly based on your interest, have a clear statement of aim on that CV, so that within 10 seconds of anyone reading that, they're very, very clear as to what it is you're looking to achieve in terms of your interest in AV. And I think, last point arguably to make is, don't just rely on one channel. Hunt in packs, if you like. Do contact, end user companies. There's lots of obviously prospective employers out there. Obviously, there's Middlesbrough College in terms of the apprenticeship, but also there are clearly agencies, and there's job boards, and there's obviously LinkedIn, etc. But the point I'm making is you need to hunt in packs. Look at different channels. Don't just rely on one channel. And the thing I do want to say is that I think overwhelmingly, if you show interest and in a company, when you're making a genuine interest, I mean, in terms of whether that's in terms of covering note or, you stand a much better chance. I'd say, arguably, you're 90% more likely to get an interview than somebody that's just sending in, a generic CV. Yeah. So I think, do your research and definitely, make it clear as to what you're looking to achieve, and explore all channels.
Now, I would like to ask.
Yeah.
I myself am currently seeking a AV apprenticeship. Are they important to the AV industry, in your opinion?
I mean, I think the point to make about apprenticeships in general actually is that obviously you it's a means of learning, obviously, but whilst you're still earning. And I think if we particularly, obviously we're here to talk about the AV industry, but I think the apprenticeship concept really does lend itself to the AV industry. There's no doubt about it. And the reason being, quite simply, obviously, overwhelmingly, the AV sector is it's practical, it's hands-on, it's vocational, it's obviously developed, and I know there are lots of people out there that will, that are, highly skilled in this whole area of, AI, etc., and far way off the stratosphere in terms of advanced understanding of technology. But we're fundamentally talking about, and I've used the term before, where's the gateway? How do you get in? How do you start? And without that gateway, it's very, very difficult, to either define what it is and certainly to understand how best to go about, finding that. So I think the answer is absolutely 100% our apprenticeships important to the AV industry because they are beneficial, obviously, first and foremost, to anybody considering AV as a career, because here's a point to make. An apprenticeship doesn't produce an industry expert within 24 months. That is not the point. The point is the person coming in from whatever sector, whatever industry, anybody can do an AV technician apprenticeship, provided they have maths and English GCSE. And that applies equally. You can do an apprenticeship if you're working in the industry already. Don't forget that. It's not just somebody wants to upskill or wants to have a formal qualification in it. But the point is that that apprentice is going to experience, a very detailed. Do not get me wrong; it's not a walk in the park. If you actually go onto the Institute for Apprenticeship website, search for audio visual, all one word, technician level 5, you will be able to see the key elements that make up those modules, and it's a tough course. However, the point is that at the end of which you will have touched on largely the broad spectrum of technical disciplines, together with an element of how to deal with clients, etc. And that means that you have basically a foundation. That's the bottom line. You have a recognized foundation from which you can then obviously go on to extend that to further 12 months for a foundation degree in BSc Honours in Audiovisual Technology, if you wish, but you don't have to. But the key point I'm making is that once you have that foundation, and I said it last week actually, no one can take that away from you. You've got it. That's it. So you can only build upon that. And crucially, it means that you are then in the industry, you're recognized, technically qualified. You've obviously ideally have a position with the organization that you've been working with. But if you haven't, in some cases that is the case, that for whatever reason there isn't a permanent role at the end of the term, you obviously can, as I've just described earlier, you then can go out to market, you can apply all of those principles that I spoke about, approaching companies directly using, all those search techniques and profile techniques. And I would be absolutely gobsmacked if you didn't secure a role after your apprenticeship.
Agreed.
And it's certainly our mission as an industry to make sure that every single apprentice is employed beyond their completion, their graduation. So yeah, sorry, again, a long answer, but anyway, that's absolutely, they are crucial.
It's like the biggest checkbox you can probably have. I'd say if you're applying somewhere is, they've done the apprenticeship. Okay, that's good.
Absolutely.
I can guarantee that this person will do the job if asked to at least a basic level, which I think is big for a hiring. Because obviously, if you have experience at insert media company here, sure you have experience, but what experience we don't know. We can't make it definite. Like we don't know. Oh, you can do this. You can wire up a camera setup. You can mic up a guest if they come. You can operate a sound desk and a vision mixer at the same time if needed. If that comes to that crazy kind of scenario, would they be like, oh, okay, I see it. You can lead an event probably. You probably have experience with at least every part of the gallery. You've touched it this bunch. You have guaranteeables. I think it's pretty big.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, yes, you would have touched it at some point across that spectrum of 2 years, and I think the key point to make, and I know I've said it previously, but it's a formal recognized framework. So it means that that person has gone through that framework, and therefore, I mean, obviously, we're all different. We're human beings, clearly. But what I'm saying is that every apprentice has gone through that framework, and obviously, provided they pass, the employer, has a benchmarked, if you like, a person that they can, work with and develop their interest in whatever particular area that may be of AV. I mean, I'm not suggesting some people, do go on and specialize into particular certain fields or disciplines. Some don't. Some, prefer the generalist approach, and some, go off, as I say, into areas of whether that's marketing, sales, business development, but the bottom line is that everybody has that foundation and that apprenticeship, which I've said numerous times. Once you have that, that's with you for your career. Yeah, life. Yeah.
100%. So probably my last question is, what is the single favorite moment of your entire AV career you've had so far?
Oh,
There's a lot.
I think, well, I mean, I'm very proud of, of what we've achieved as a company. I definitely have I've always enjoyed the AV industry. I love the technology, the people, the fact that it's a creative sector. I've always been creative. So to have a career where you're working in a field where you've always had genuine interest, I've been very fortunate in that part. I think I have to say, though, probably, and I know I probably may be boring some people on this point, but I have to say it's working in part to to develop the apprenticeship, without doubt, because companies, a company aside, to be part of something where you're able to genuinely contribute to help, people of all areas in the industry to come together, which is essentially what we did. We acted as the conduit, if you like, to channel lots of input from lots of different people, lots of different companies, which ultimately culminated in the formation of the apprenticeship. But I think,
so Jacobs were in the center of that.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I chaired the Trailblazer group, of employers that first got together, and I worked very, very closely with Jack over a number of years in, collating different responses to course content, and do not get me wrong, it is not an individual element effort. It is a true collective, and that's what's like. So that's why it's so satisfying, and to culminate in, having a phone call saying, literally, I'm not exaggerating here, in a phone call saying the minister has just signed off the apprenticeship, which means stamp. I was like, wow, and that took 5 years.
5 years.
So for that reason, I think that's probably my highlight. But I was only I took a very, very small part in that. But that's a highlight for anybody that's genuinely interested in hopefully developing the industry.
100%. Yeah.
And what you do here, what you're doing here, it's all great stuff. It's all great stuff.
That's part of the reason, I guess. Wow.
Absolutely. Cool. So yeah, no, thank you, Tina. Honestly, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your podcast, and I sincerely mean this, flipping this the other way around. Brilliant initiative. I'm sure you're going to have an amazing career in the AV industry.
We should hope so.
And yeah, I look forward to seeing you at some point.
Well, thank you too for coming
Yeah,
on.
no problem.
Um, any last words?
Any last words? Any last words? I think, yeah, just please, if you know of anybody that is considering their next step, or they're looking for a career which is, in that creative technology sector, um, wave the flag, wave the AV industry flag,
AV flag.
please. Absolutely.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for having me, Graham.
No problem.
Bye, everyone.
See you then. Bye.